would we have cities on the surface of the moon or in the moon, or both? We have this potential master plan. Like, how soon are we thinking? All right, so something that I find really interesting about what it seems like Elon Musk is doing is that he's got the company, the Boring Company, right? Where he's essentially building these tunnels underground. That's the idea for cars to drive through on Earth. And I was talking with somebody about this who's involved with space, and they were saying that it seems almost as if they're involved with the Navy, and they think that he is creating kind of a replica of what would potentially come on the moon via us traveling through the lava tubes on the moon. So do you know how big these lava tubes actually are? What this actually conceptually might look like in real life?
There are reports from the NASA Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter that some lava tubes that they've discovered are 2,000 feet long to 1,500 feet long. The lava tubes they have discovered geologically occur between the highlands and the mezzanine, or mezzes as they're called, geological plains, if you will, on the moon. Many are closer to the North Pole. They have seen 16 collapsed ones that they believe are collapsed, but I don't believe we've had a probe yet inside any of the tubes. So the data we have is all from orbiting probes. And I believe some kind of tomography, photography, and some other kind of sensor data, but nothing like where they're running a robot down it and we're actually measuring it. That being said, the sizes of them, as opposed to Earth lava tubes, Moon lava tubes, and Mars lava tubes, have a relationship to them based on their gravity. And it turns out that Mars lava tubes can be anywhere from 300 feet across. I was not able to find the speculative sizes of the diameter of the Moon lava tubes. But that is, in terms of the length and the size is relative to a few things, I believe, when they were created: the pressure of the volcanic action at the time, and then the reduced gravity. And
right.
The moon is a sixth of the Earth, so if you're 100 pounds here, you're 16 pounds there.
Right.
And 200 pounds, you're 32 pounds there. I don't remember what the gravity is on Mars, but there's this relationship of the sizes of the tubes have to do with the density and the pressure and the gravity of that planet.
Okay.
So that's what I know about that in terms of length and size.
Yeah, and it seems like, so we're for sure that they were made from lava on the moon.
Yes, there was active volcanic activity. I don't believe there is any active volcanic activity currently, but again, I'm not a planetary scientist.
Right. So, okay, from your understanding, why would we choose to live underground? It's like living like mole people, right?
Well,
versus the surface.
This relates to, is the moon dangerous? And there are three main dangers that settlers and astronauts would face, and that is primarily radiation, cosmic radiation, and solar radiation. And then secondly, reduced gravity. And thirdly, besides radiation and reduced gravity, the regolith itself. Actually, there's a fourth one: the extreme temperatures of the moon. So living in the lava tube or in the crater or putting a dome over a crater gives us protection against some protection against cosmic and solar radiation, certainly, and some stability of temperature control. And the temperature, we can talk about, the North Pole versus the equator versus the South Pole, which is fascinating.
Is it like, to touch on that, is it like, you said it's extremes, obviously, obviously it's the moon, but what are we talking here comparison wise,
Okay, so on the equator during the day, obviously there's the side that always faces Earth, and there's the side that doesn't face Earth. Yeah. There is the dark side of the moon. The dark side is where all the aliens are, I suppose. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
So at the equator, it basically goes up to 225 Fahrenheit in the day and 208 below zero in the night. So about a swing of 400 degrees. But at the North Pole of the moon, I believe it's minus 405 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, really cold. And on the South Pole, a nice warm 310 or 308 below zero Fahrenheit.
Okay.
So really, really cold at the poles.
Yeah. So so you're saying it's 310 degrees
below zero. Yeah.
On the South Pole?
Zero. Yeah. The moon, of all the moons in our solar system, that is the coldest place they've ever measured, which I find fascinating. I was like, really? Colder than places on Neptune and moons of Saturn and moons of Uranus? But yeah, I guess so. At the North Pole of our moon, minus 405 degrees is the coldest we've measured to date. But I was just thinking, imagine stepping out inside what 405 degrees below zero feels like. Anyway, that's cold.
I mean, I just looked it up. It's the coldest that's ever been recorded on Earth is 89. It's 89 degrees below. So zero. This would be 3 to 4 times that.
Yeah.
All the time. This is a real plan though right now, is this concept of going to the moon, to colonize the moon. And we've got, the Gateway, the International Space Station that's by the moon. There's actual things going on for this. Yeah. So like, yes. Why are we doing this? If it sounds like this terrible, is this like?
Well, we tend to talk about settling, colonizing. We're trying to get people in the space community not to talk about colonization because of all the bad historic attribution. Mm-hmm. So the reason of building Gateway, which is an orbiting habitat, and then the lunar surface, is as a jumping off point to deeper space missions and then Mars. And I think the schedule is for Artemis 1, which we did last year. We completed in November, and it went around the moon and came back at 1.2 million miles successfully. Mm-hmm. Artemis 2, and then there'll be Artemis 3. And Artemis 2 will be is scheduled for next year to take off. And then Artemis 3 the year thereafter, 2025. But there are some concerns that Starship is having, SpaceX's Starship might be impacted its schedule, and it might slip to 2026. So we have 3 missions. They're designed, and why are they designed? But for discovery and moving out into the solar system.
Deep space, baby. Yeah,
deep space. And why, as we say at the Human Space Program, not only do we have an explorer gene that has been discovered within humans, there are people who are really averse to risk, and there are a whole bunch of people that are not averse to risk, but they have to go. They have to climb the mountain. They have to go down to the deepest trench on the planet. So there's this interesting thing about humans as a species and the explorer gene. But there's also just the frontier, where it's just kind of how we're built as a species to go find and look. Also, though, it gives us a great backup plan of moving, as Gerard K. O'Neill, who wrote The High Frontier, mentioned, gives us a great backup plan in case we have any kind of, what do they call it?
Solar flares or something crazy like that.
What is it called when, we have an event that wipes us out? As they like to say, the shorthand is say that extinction event. Exactly. The dinosaurs didn't have a space program. So Having a seed bank in space and then having data in space and or on the moon gives us the ability to survive if anything were to happen on this planet. And there are a number of scenarios of, civilization ending. Lots of books and literature on that work. So a lot of people think of the moon in relationship to, we'll jump off to Mars.
No, I'm with you. I think that space is, I think that we have this idea that if we go to space, we're like abandoning Earth. And in a sense, we're not doing our best. And it's like, actually, we don't have any concept of the Earth's gravity without understanding that space doesn't have the same type of gravity. Like we have to recognize that we understand Earth through comparison to space in a lot of ways, and the moon and other things. Like we have to use all resources, you know what I mean, to make things happen. And with the lava tubes too, it's like back to those, because I'm fascinated by the lava tubes thing. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that would be fascinating to know about the lava tubes that we should know? What have we found? What could we find?
The cool lava tubes, the size, as habitats, doming. With the building a dome over a massive crater and having an underground lava tube is going to give us temperature stability from the extreme temperature swings. So I'm hopeful that we can create autonomous robots to help us build out that capability quickly. Robots that help build that and robots that repair that and building out a habitat. But the tube itself, the craters, and living there will give us a good starting point. But it's the water we've got to focus on. The Indians actually, and back in 2008, it was their probe that discovered the water in November of 2008. So the Indians just landed their probe 2-3 weeks ago successfully and rolled out their little rover, and so they've been able to do that on less than a major motion picture. So they're very good at doing.
Yes, I did know this. I was thinking something else. It's all frozen, right? It's got to be. It's so cold there.
Yeah, and the makeup of the regolith. There's something to be said about the regolith, obviously, because
what's the regolith for everybody?
The regolith is the dust. It's the ground of the moon, and the moon is made of silicon oxide and another oxide, and in those oxides is where we have 40% of the oxygen of the Earth is in those oxides, and that's where we will get a lot of the H2O. And it turns out that the moon has been bombarded with helium-3, which is an isotope. And helium-3 is an isotope that we can run inside of a fusion reactor. And so the regolith of the moon is full of helium-3. Helium-3 is a massive energy store, and it's very rare and hard to find here on Earth, though we have it because, and I found out that our government, federal government manufactures helium-3. It's used with tritium as part of nuclear weapons.
So helium-3 is found in the dust, the regolith of the moon, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's math, and it was formed and created there. So we've got this, not only is there water, meaning there's hydrogen and oxygen, vast amounts of oxygen on the moon. So we need water, but we also need energy. And so once we solve the energy and the water issue, our habitats become very sustainable. And there's been some great work at NASA about 3D printing material buildings. So robots that produce buildings, so we can set up shop quickly. We'll still have to run conduit, meaning, stuff for networking, plumbing, what have you. I don't know. Don't ask me anything about the waste stuff and the food stuff. I have focused a little bit on, but again, not my area. I'm more excited about the energy stuff and the beaming the energy around the planet, around the moon, solar, wireless energy, space-based solar power. And but first we got to get our energy stores and we got to get our water processing sorted out. But we have with regolith that's why the other thing when you said it, have we gone to the moon? They've already figured out how to extract the oxygen and water from the regolith that they have here on Earth from their explorations there.
That's interesting, because that company I plan to talk to, the company, it's like the Foundation for Space founder actually told me about this company, and he describes it as like a giant Roomba, essentially, that kind of goes on the sand here and extracts the water from the sand as if it were on the moon, where, it's ideally doing that for with the regolith for water and helium-3, it sounds like, and maybe some other things.
So in the lab, they've been able to take regolith and they've been able to zap it with high energy, and they've been able to extract the helium and the oxygen, so the water, and then you recombine that. Sorry, you have the elements, and then you combine it and you make water. But you extract it from the regolith, the elements. We have figured out how to do that. I don't know if, obviously we haven't scaled it because we haven't probably had the reason to yet do that, but that's what we will. That's why we want to get to Artemis up and running by 2028, because the Chinese are scheduled to be there at 2028, and they want to go to the same place that we've all discovered water. We want the place where there's the most water, because once we get water and energy sorted out, then we'll be on our way, but we've got to figure that out.
Next is heat. Figure out the heat.
Yeah. Oh, that one of my other favorite things, heat. Yes. Heat. Because when you put your hand on anything around, your computer, if you feel heat, that's waste. And on our grid here in the States, which is the largest interconnected machine on the planet, the U.S. grid, we waste 65 quads a year, and a quad can power Chicago for a year. We throw that out. And we cannot afford to do that when we build Gateway and when we build the Artemis habitats. We cannot throw out quads on our electrical grid in that way. But you're right, heat. We need heat. We'll need heat on the moon.
Yeah, I mean, we need the heat at the very least. I'm looking at I believe what they're saying with the Artemis base camp, right? That's going to be the permanent outpost in the South Pole, right? So the concept is we haven't built that. We're not close, obviously. We haven't even landed to do that. But I wonder, once we have I suppose that would be on top of the surface on the regolith to sit there, and it would be protected from radiation and all that. Would we have settlements, as in cities, on the surface of the moon, or in the surface in the moon, or both?
I suspect, though, it depends on what timeline you're talking about. I mean, certainly in the human space program, we talk about the total mass of the solar system and how much, and our timelines are very long. We look at 100 years, we look at 1,000 years, we look at 10,000 years. I mean, even though we've kind of come back about how much mass can we convert to create the ability of our species to migrate from and out into the universe. So it depends. I mean, but I don't think we're doing cities, certainly in our lifetime.
Would we think, though, that these would exist on the top? Is that even we want that because of the radiation and flipping cold, or you'd think that in the lunar
they'll do a blend. They'll do whatever, ultimately it's there's this thing called in situ resource utilization, ISRU, and it's basically they're going to use a lot of 3D printing to build the parts of his replacements. But ultimately what you're optimizing for is survivability, and that's really oxygen, water, and energy. And so they'll blend between lava tubes or craters or surface and the energy consumed by the robots and the machines to do what they need to do. And they'll just be basically always optimizing, and they'll be using a vast amount of AI to help them do this.
This huge argument about the moon landing in the first place. Curious what your take is on this. It's going to be a lot of people on here that are going to have opinions. What's this?
Look.
First day of issue. Ooh.
1969, September 9th. That was yeah. I actually saw that. That's how old I am. I was 7 or whatever. Anyway, I'm 61. Yeah.
So do you think we landed on the moon? Do you think it's legit?
Oh, absolutely. I have insider information that we absolutely did.
Interesting. Okay.
From Buzz Aldrin and from the sixth man on the moon, his name is now escaping me, who set up the Noetic Institute. How could I forget his name?
He's going to see
anyway,
this.
It'll come to me maybe later.
I'm just kidding.
Absolutely, we did.
Okay, so there's a lot of people that say otherwise. And obviously, I'm not the expert to argue it. I would love to believe that we did. I'm a constant devil's advocate. I would love to be proven otherwise. That's the thing. So I'm not asking you to do that. It's more just an interesting. Yeah, it's more of an interesting conversation of just like, okay, did that happen? It's like, it's funny though, because it's like we have not gone back yet. And we also don't have we have never been in the tubes. So how we have this potential master plan, like how big is this plan? Is this legit? Are we really actually looking to build life on the moon for like pretty soon? Like how soon are we thinking?
That's in terms of the American plan, which incorporates the Canadians, European Space Agency, and JAXA, the Japanese. They are the 4 consortium members who will be building out Artemis. On the government side of the build out in America, I'm not talking about Japan, and I'm not talking about Europe, and I'm not talking about Canada, who are part of the partnership to build all of this.
To build the stuff to go there, you mean?
Yeah, the plans and the people who are going to have to build it. I mean, between Gateway and the habitat on the lunar surface, those are all the build out of that entire thing. We've already done Artemis 1. We're going to do Artemis 2 in a year or two. We'll do Artemis 3. But building Gateway and habitat, that is all part of this international consortium.
So these countries were working together then to do this?
Yeah, they signed up to the Artemis Accords, as it's called.
Oh, okay, that's cool. So do we have a timeline for this? Because
imagine they were successful by 2028, getting the habitat down there, and they send the first, Artemis will put the first woman and person of color on the moon. So that is the goal in terms of gender and ethnicity, which is great.
Yeah.
And that's 2028. They'd be lucky, I think, if they get it by 2030. And how many people? I don't know in terms of that first settlement. And I forget the name of it. You might want to let your viewers name. I know they're going to have a name for it, but I suspect that all the international partners are maybe going to want a hand in deciding what they call the name of it. On a few of the TV shows that are on streaming platforms now, they call it like things like Jamestown. But those are
Jamestown. That's funny.
That's so American. I suspect that it might be something else. And
okay, so I have this idea, this concept where I imagine, if I'm thinking of Elon Musk, right? He's got this underground world. He's kind of not world, but he's
business here.
Underground worlds, and then he's got Starlink, which is like connecting everybody through the internet, right? And then he's got Tesla, which is a new, different way to use energy, right, on the surface. Then he's got, Starship, right, which is a way to connect the dots between the different planets. And then I think there's one more Neuralink, Neuralink, which is connecting all of this and people to AI. You almost have to think that this guy, if he starts stepping back, you're seeing like the bigger picture. It's almost like he's creating this entire ecosystem, which I obviously am not the first person to think this, of course, right? But like this huge ecosystem. So I imagine the Boring Company in a way is like a practice round, kind of, for the moon, maybe. It's like to see what we can do.
Could be. I mean, moving objects in mass in a vacuum, and you probably have been to a few banks where you put your money and your card in the vacuum and it goes poof, right? It goes over to the office. Yeah. I mean, it's a very efficient way to move mass quickly and getting it certainly transcontinental here in the States or in Europe or any of the 7 continents, and then figuring it out under the oceans. It would be a good test bed to figure out how to do that. I don't know if when you think about what is required, I do know that the Earth is 30% less dense. I don't know the percentage. It's just less dense than the Earth is. And when you have to build a tunnel,
or the Earth is.
The moon is less dense. And
okay.
Getting drilling robots that do that, that's a whole nother thing they'll have to figure out up there.
The thing is, too, though, let's say there's all this stuff about AI, right?
Uh-huh.
And AI might change the game for everything pretty quick. It really might, as far as how rapid we can go.
Oh, I will speak to that. You've right. You've got Tesla, but you've got Cybertruck. So you've got his planetary, surface transportation car company. Electric batteries. You forgot Solar City. It's also got a solar company. So that's energy. But the interesting thing is, if you want to see something really interesting, go and watch the presentation they did about 2 or 3 months ago, where he stood in front of the stockholders of Tesla and he gave the quarterly presentation. And at the very end, he talks about the robots, Optimus. So you remember he kind of did a big media thing like he did with the Cybertruck. And you had this robot standing there. And then, so they've moved the robot. But the interesting thing about the AI that they've developed inside of Tesla is the AI, the operating system that's controlling that robot, is called Optimus. And he says something at the end of that quarterly report presentation where he says, yes, now watch what we're going to do here. So that's the most interesting thing I'm excited about, is the operating system inside the humanoid robots, because the operating system has a lot of relationship to the operating system that's being built by the Tesla engineering team. Anyway, the most interesting thing is the robot and the operating system that is controlling that brain, because what we want to rapidly move into space is we want robots building robots, which I know that scares people.
I want to ask you really quick, because I know we're kind of wrap soon. What does Buzz Aldrin have to say about the moon landing?
Oh, Buzz, well, since he was one of the people that was there, he's known for he doesn't suffer fools well. And he was accosted in a lobby many years ago by someone who came up and said, and he just punched him. And
Buzz did, or he punched?
Yeah, Buzz did. Yeah, but Buzz punched the guy because the guy was getting in his face and talking.
I think
nonsense.
I saw that on camera.
I think I saw that too on the net, and that's Buzz's rock and roll. Yeah.
Well, is he willing to spill the beans on any inside info or not? Or, I mean, I know obviously.
I don't know. You'd have to talk to Christina Korp, who worked with him for many, many, many years, and she would know.
Yeah, I did. I did speak with her a couple months ago. I would like to find somebody who does not believe the moon landing happened, and then somebody who does, possibly her. And see what that looks like.
Panel. Yeah.